Hi, my name's George Toledo, and I want to take this opportunity to touch on a few things about Quartz Composer, graphics technology for Apple. Uh, I've been having a few questions about interfacing this with augmented reality. Let's see, let's start at square one. If you're interested in Quartz Composer, I recommend joining the Apple mailing list about the topic. A lot of great discussion comes out of there. Number one, the discussion that actually resulted in this AR toolkit technology. Uh, Somebody reported an Xcode project template for this over here with an MQO importer. Now, MQO is a file that's a 3D object file uh, created in a Windows program called Metasequoia. So while I was pretty interested in the single marker detector that used this AR toolkit library, I was not so interested in the fact that it worked with Metasequoia objects and was a lot more interested in 3D transformation using all the typical Apple Quartz Composer tricks. Now, I believe that a matrix parameter uh, patch has been included since I've done some of my renders here. But initially, knowing that the language of Quartz Composer structure, by and large, is JavaScript, I noticed there was an output matrix to the single marker detector, and this MQO importer had an input matrix. Now, let's just get something running here real quick. Okay, we have a darting particle composition. Um, Now, you notice that there's an output found for this that's reading true. One of the great things, that's actually simple but real nice because you can cover this up and there's no output found. It turns off whatever patch you have it connected to, or whatever macro you have, or enable switch you have it connected to. In this case, it's a 3D transformation. Let's go in here real quick. I'm finding that to induce some nausea. Let's turn that off. Okay. Now, how I decoded this matrix, so to speak, was just to hover over the node, see that I had 16 members there. As I moved the paper backwards, I could see, for instance, that 14, structure, key structure 14 went from number negative 12 to, as I put the paper closer to the camera, I got off kilter here. It's at negative 6, so I could obviously see that was attached to the Z-plane. I did the same for pretty much every movement that I could discern and hooked it up to the 3D transformation and seemed appropriate. That seemed to be a pretty good starting point since most AR stuff is based on actually making the geometry of a 3D, something like a 3D digital graphic scene interact with reality. So hooking it up to a 3D transformation within QC seemed like a logical starting point. Let's turn on another macro. Alright, here's some characters actually tracking to the paper. This is using Kineme 3D Alpha 9 software. You can see as I pull away, the characters follow, the correct Z scaling. I got the rotations here. Oh, now they're upside down. It thinks I have this backwards. There you go. It's a little glitchy. I can go ahead and, to solve that, you go over here to the single marker detector tracking. go over to your patch inspector and you can just control the input threshold. It does tend to work better in a brighter room. It's a little bit dim in here right now. Let's see here. That is pretty much the main gist of it. Let's see. I can add that, one of the great things about, having 3D within 3D macro capability is that you could shift this stuff. Let's see. False. For instance, these lighting particles, I do have this trackball in here, so I can actually move them and reposition them to my liking, and then just start retracking with the paper. And inside that trackball, I could have yet another 3D transformation. So you have a lot of capability for inverse movement. You can attach interpolations here to change the ranges automatically. The other thing is you could go ahead and take one of these structures, like something like this, and hook it up to a number range for a CI filter, or to the, let's say, the particle length here, so that as you got closer to the camera, the particle length blooms. As a matter of fact, I think I did that for a render of one of these compositions on my Vimeo page. Let's see, as a final kind of wrap up, I think that you'd be interested in going to Kineme, pretty much installing every one of these plugins, definitely checking out the Quartz Crystal Renderer, making donations. The tool set that they have for Quartz Composer is pretty indispensable. I think you probably would like to check out Vimeo, if I could find it here. This augmented reality group that Colin Wren started. His tutorials probably a better starting point than mine. I have some other stuff here that makes use of optical flow, which it doesn't rely on the single tracker technology at all. Actually relies on tracking movement via camera. That's something maybe for another video. Groups, and you might also want to check out the Quartz Composer. Hopefully this is the right URL. Yeah, you might want to go ahead and check out the Quartz Composer group too, which is another interesting group. Let's see here. And let's see. No. Huh. I hadn't seen that Quartz Composer group. I guess that's going to bear some looking into. It looks like I've plagued it with a bunch of my clips. Well, maybe don't go to this Quartz Composer group unless you want to see a bunch of my stuff again. Hopefully this was of some use to some people. One last thing, looking at the Xcode project for the single marker detector, you could easily see it could be modded. These pattern sample things, Unix executable file. You could conceivably add more different types of pattern printout samples, such as these. Like here we have two different ones which this plugin responds to. You could have different positions that could be set up to control different macros, allowing even more flexibility. So with that note, I'm going to go ahead and turn off my iGrab it. If anybody has any questions, you can feel free to contact me.